The Fresno steak has not yet. Oh, and now we're starting to be recorded. Wonderful. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
So I don't know about the East steak or the Fresno steak yet as far as opening their centers up. So, Bob, I guess we'll continue. As I said, I have no news.
Okay. Well, no news is good news, right?
Yeah,
Or something like that.
I've heard that before.
Okay, well, let me try to minimize
Well, there is one
everything.
interjection, if I might, Bob. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's a lot of names, and Bob's mentioned this before, but it's nice to know who you are. I have like Diane, but we don't know the last names. Oh, Madera opened their center up. Wonderful. Okay, so that's my interjection. Thank you.
Okay, well, my wife asked me now, is this the same lesson as I give when I have another one that's titled Discover, Gather, and Connect? And I said, no, this one's a totally different one. I kind of felt that based on our Roots Tech experience, if you took part, you know that the big word in there was connect. And they really did push a lot on connecting. And so what I thought I'd do is just help us to kind of refocus back in on the other side of family history, from the gathering of names and dates and places to the discovering and gathering and connect, which is something I know we've all heard, but maybe you could pick up something from some of the things that I pull out tonight as things that we can do to help encourage our members to get more involved in family history. So with that, we'll go forward. The idea of Discover, Gather, and Connect started back in 2018 at Roots Tech. So that's 3 years ago. That's Bradley Foster, the General Authority 70, who's the executive secretary or executive director, of the Family History Department. And that time, he said, our emphasis for the coming year is to help the consultants see their role in helping members have this experience. We do that one by one. We go to people wherever they are with a special emphasis on those who are turning 12 and new members. And he was talking about this discovering, gathering, and connect experience that they wanted us to try to participate in. And, you know, whenever you think of family history in general, you think of all the excuses our members have. Now, of course, we're the choir. We don't need to hear these because most of us are involved. But this, of course, is what all the rest of the members talk about. And so what we've got to do is become the mythbusters and prove to them that these things are all false and that there's a reason to get involved. You know, and people ask me, is how come you know so much about your ancestors? And you know, the real reason is I've walked with them. I haven't talked with them. I sure wish I could. I've been in their shoes. I've dug around in all their records. I've literally dug in the backwoods to find their headstones. I've been with them. They're my friends. And we need to get our members at some level a little bit more aware of their family. They don't have to be at the level that I'm at or you're at, but they at least ought to be able to name their grandparents or their great-grandparents and maybe know a little bit about them. And so what we're trying to do tonight is try to give you some ideas of things that might open the door to getting people to participate more in family history as they discover and help gather and connect their family together. I love what President Oaks said. He says, members should participate by prayerfully selecting those ways that fit their personal circumstances at a particular time. Our efforts not to compel everyone to do everything, but to encourage everyone to do something. And I think that is so, so true. And what I hope to do tonight is just give you things, ideas that maybe you hadn't thought about for a while, that might be things that you can use with your members of your ward to help get them started on their pathway to family history by turning their hearts to their family. These things are all heart-turning activities. So discover, gather, and connect, basically. The discover part was to discover the ancestors' existence, their qualities, discover what we have in common with them. The gathering would be to gather their records, their stories, gather them into the tree, but especially gather them into your heart. And the connect, there's two sides to that. We want to connect with each other that are alive, your cousins, your own family, your immediate family, your distant family, and then, of course, with your ancestors. And, of course, the ultimate of everything we do is to have our family gather in the temple. Okay, talking about this ultimate goal, I found two quotes. One of them, Eric Kapishki, is General Authority 70, who's one of our assistant executive directors. He says it's not enough, I love this, it is not enough to just plunder the tree. It's not enough to go and chase green icons, a reference to the symbol on the family tree and the Family Search website indicating that a member of one's ancestors in need of temple work. The focus right now is to discover, he said. We want people to have an experience in discovering their family, discovering things about their family. It's genealogy records, but it's also stories about their family. And Elder Foster said, we want everyone to have that discovery experience because that is what changes their hearts. That's what we're trying to do. Then the rest will come automatically. And I really do believe that. I think that once we get people's hearts turning, then they're ready and willing and want to go find those ancestors. And so our job is to kind of kickstart people without physically kicking them, but kickstart them into getting going. And so what we're going to do, the presentation I'm going to show you, I'll be honest with you, I stole a lot of this from Mike Sandberg, who's the gentleman that's a product manager for Family Search that wrote many of these discovery experiences and presented some of this in 2018 at Roots Tech. So I loved in 2018 when I think it was I think it was Brother Elder Bednar got up there and he says, I want to introduce you to the, now I can't think what the word I want is, the gateway drug to family history, the Tree app. I'll never forget that. So I thought that may have been a bad choice of words if you think back about it, but it's so true. You know, if we have all of our members, virtually almost every member has a smartphone, Android or Apple, doesn't matter. And they can all have the Tree app on it. And I think we'll find that if we really promote the Tree app to youth and younger adults especially, we'll find a lot more success than we normally would because it's with them all the time. And this is something they love to use. And so that's step number one in discovery is get your people to get the Tree app, get them to get the Memories app and show them how to use it. And you've got them started on the path that you want them to get on. Okay, discovery experiences. The thing that's wonderful about these, they are touching, they're heartwarming, and they are short. That's the beautiful thing. They're usually something you can do in 5 to 10 minutes. And there's a multitude of them. You know, when they said earlier, we want everybody to do something. They don't have to do everything. Well, I guarantee you with the plethora of discovery activities that we have, there's got to be something that virtually every member would be interested in. And so, approach it with that idea as you work with new members, or you run into somebody. I don't know if we ever see them at church, but run into them wherever, you'll get a chance to just say, hey, have you ever tried this? And just show them. You can use their phone and get into the discovery activities and show them one. So anyway, but there are a lot. There's multiple places to find them. Easiest way, if you can't remember, is just do the old familysearch.org and then /discovery. That'll get you there. It's on the home page of the Family Search webpage. It's found underneath the Discoveries tab. It's at the top. This is an old view. It doesn't have it there, but there'll be a Discoveries right in there, or activities. Okay. One of them is, where did your family live? Now, what I want to do is try to give you some new ideas. That's a discovery activity. I'm sure you've heard of it. But have you considered using Google Earth? This is from Google Earth. This isn't from some picture off the internet or a postcard or something like that. One of my ancestors, I have an immigrant ancestor to New England in the 1640s who came from Barry Pomeroy, Devonshire, England. And this is the Barry Pomeroy Castle. This sits on a hill right above the little village of Barry Pomeroy. Now, I don't know where Richard Catter lived in Barry because they don't have addresses, but I'm sure he knew about that castle. And so this is a way to bring his life to life, is by just using street views from Google Earth. Learn how to use that. If you have people's addresses, my grandfather's home, I had the address of his home from a deed. I went and looked it up. I have pictures of the house when it was first built back in 1915. It's beautiful. Today it's a vacant lot, so I don't get to see much. And the house isn't there obviously anymore, but at least I know exactly where it's located. And some of the houses on that block are still there. I can recognize them from pictures that he took back in 100 years ago. But this is an easy thing that really brings people's lives to life. I did this with one of the members of our ward who had family in England, and I found some street views on Google Earth and showed it to him, and it really just blew him away that he could actually see what the little village was like that his family came from in England. So think of that as a possibility. Another way of approaching it is, one of my great-great-grandfathers, William Carter, was on a mission to India in 1852 to 54. And in his journal for the 30th of April, 1853, said, this morning, Brother Jones and I went up on the monument. They call it the Martyrs Monument today, which is 180 feet high. We had a fair view of the city and shopping and the country around as far as our eyes could extend. It's a very large city and looks very well. There were a great many large and beautiful buildings in Calcutta. The government house is a splendid building. Well, we happened to have a cousin that went into India just a couple of years ago and took pictures of places that he mentioned in his journal. And that's a modern day picture in the top of this tower, 180-foot high tower. And then I was able to find a picture that dates back to the 1850s when he was there and what it looked like. And I imagine those are the government buildings behind the tower in that drawing. And these are things that I shared with our family organization to help people get a real feel for what that journal was all about. Discovery activities can be so much fun. They're fun even looking for them. Touch what they touched. Now, I bet you almost all of us have something in their house that comes from our ancestors. Have we shared this with our family? There's a couple of small chairs there. with a modern day chair next to them for comparison. Those two chairs are part of a dining set that was given to my great-great-grandparents on their wedding day 151 years ago in 1870 in Ohio. And I had a couple of great aunts who sent these out to us, boxed them up in big crates and shipped them from back east out to us so that we could have those. So those are 150-year-old chairs that our ancestors sat in at one time. What a blessing to have that. Do you have things like that marked so family knows what it is? And have you shared it with your family members? The main thing my family will know is they can't sit on them. They're not allowed to sit on them. Those are for decoration only. But it's so cool to have those and notice the size difference in people from those days to now. The seat height's only about 1.5 inches shorter of ours, but in every other way, the chairs are a lot smaller. Whoops. Another one is read what they wrote. And I have this choice piece of paper. It was really 2 sheets of real narrow paper. And on the day my mother was born, the 2nd of April, 1917, my grandfather wrote to my grandmother's best friend, Carrie, a message and saying that Alcesta, my grandmother, had had a rough delivery, but she had finally given birth to this beautiful, healthy child. And the doctor said she was going to be just fine, that Alcesta would be fine in a few days. Well, unfortunately, that wasn't true. My grandmother died of complications. And ironically, my grandfather marries Carrie as his second wife about a year later, a little less than a year later, so he'd have somebody to raise that child. My mother never knew her mother. She never knew that her mother died in childbirth until she was a teenager. She thought Carrie was her natural mother. And so this piece of paper is just a precious paper in our possession because of the fact that it's in my grandfather's handwriting and tells the story of my mother's birth. Stories are really heart-turning. I love the fact that Family Search has put such a focus on stories. They even let you see it in the fan chart. You'll never guess which quarter of my ancestry is LDS. Pretty easy to tell based on the stories. I've got to work on those others because there's not many that have any stories on my mother or even my dad's side of the tree. I've done my parents and grandparents, but I've got to go great-grandparents next and do some more. But stories are very heart-turning. And so it's great when you can get your family tuned into stories. You know, stories don't have to be long. Any size, even a page. If you know a page on your ancestor, write it. Because if nobody else has written anything, that'll be the most anybody knows. Hear what they heard. You know, in my family, we're the oldest in the oldest generation now, so we can't turn to our elders and ask them to record things. But as you work with your families in the ward, can try to convince them to record the older generation. It's so easy now with all of our devices, our phones. We can sit there and dictate into the phone and get grandma and grandpa or great-grandma to tell stories and get them in their own words, because, you know, they say words worth 1,000 pictures, and that's so true. And so try to get them to use their voice to describe things. And we have the ability now in memories to take a picture and you can record something that went with the picture. Think how special it would be if there's pictures that the grandparents are in, if they would dictate things about that picture and that day when the picture was taken. Taste what they tasted. I think every family probably has the old family recipes. In our family, we fight over who can best reproduce certain foods that my mother or my mother-in-law made. And my mother's, it's the light rolls or the potato salad. And there's always arguments on who's got the most accurate one to those, because neither one of them had a recipe. And so they've had to be manufactured from scratch. But you know something? Family Search encourages you to put recipes in memories. I can't remember if I've ever seen one, except when they've shown some examples, ever seen one in memories. But you could make a memory of a recipe and save it to the person under documents or stories. Take a picture of it and put a story with the picture and file it under stories, and you've got a way to preserve the recipe. So to sum up discoveries, President Monson said, I admonish all families to search out our heritage. It is important to know as far as possible those who came before us. We discover something about ourselves when we learn about our ancestors. And that is so true. And to this end, we preserve memories. And this is from Alma. And of course, I'm taking a little liberty because they're talking about the scriptures, but I think this applies for us tonight. And now it has hitherto been wisdom in God that these things should be preserved. For behold, they have enlarged the memory of this people. Yea, and convinced many of the error of their ways, and brought them to a knowledge of their God and unto salvation of their souls. Well, our memories might not do that, but it definitely will enlarge the memory of this people. And I love the way that Steve Rockwood and Elder Holland both talked about leaving a record so that people will know about us, that they won't have to work as hard to figure us out genealogically and family history-wise as we've had to do for those that came before us. Okay, the gathering of Discover, Gather, and Connect. Why we gather? Because it leads to great discoveries. We get discoveries on our discoveries as we gather the things together. There'll be new discoveries for you. I bet you we've all learned things about our relatives and continue to learn things. And it's part of our covenant identity. It helps us to feel like we're a part of a family. And as we gather, blessings come into our lives. That's one of the real side benefits, not why we do family history. But it really is true that as we work for those on the other side, they show their gratitude to us in many ways. You know, a lot of times people feel like this is a big job, gathering all the photos, all the stories, gathering all these new names for the temple, catching hundreds and thousands of sources, searching records through indexing, doing all this stuff's a lot of work. Well, it may be big work if you think of it that way, but why don't we try to teach our people to go small? Go small in things like using our phones, for one, to find things about our family. I love the recommendations on this page for starting small. Teach the family to pray about where they want to start. What do they want to do today? And then teach them how to use the tree or memory apps on their own devices, and maybe consider indexing as a starting point, something that they could do. And this is something that I had never thought of that I think is a great idea. Why not do some indexing together as a family, where the family could work together? Most of us have ways to cast our screens up on the TV, or just use the TV as our internet connection in our monitor, and we could do indexing right there on the screen as a family, so the family could see what happens. Another small approach, practice capturing memories. Use your device, upload a selfie to your page on Family Search. Don't be afraid to put pictures up on yourself. Put them up there. Nobody's going to see them but you, because you're the only person that can see your record. And if you're a member, once you pass on, that record will be turned to a deceased record and they will become public. But in the meantime, don't worry, put up pictures of yourself in there, or upload a picture of a family member. Take a picture of a family member and upload it. And capture a brief story about a relative and add that to their page. There's a lot of little things you can do. You can say, what's the one thing you love the most about your grandmother, and record that and then attach it to your grandmother's record. Things like that. Gathering memories with the Memories app is very easy. You can take pictures and put them right straight into Family Search. You can use the Memories app. I think this is an Android version. I'm not sure, but it shows you that you can record audio to a picture. You can add photos. You can write a story. I don't know if you'd want to write a story on a phone, but you can add images that you've taken without any trouble. They even have a list of topics for ideas if you want to record something for the audio, where the audio's at. They provide you with some prompts that you can talk about if you can't think of what you want to talk about. They've even gone that far for you. Think about adding stories to pictures. This is a picture. It's a pretty picture. It's an interesting looking picture of a young man. But look at the story that goes with it. At age 16 in Sweden, Carl Ivar Sandberg accidentally killed his good friend while hunting. Ostracized, he felt suicidal. His family encouraged him to migrate alone to South Dakota, from Sweden no less, and start over. Years later, still searching for peace, he discovered a Book of Mormon and read it in 3 days. He drove to Salt Lake and was baptized, and this totally transformed his life. Does that picture mean a lot more now? Do you see why putting a story or a little paragraph with a picture can change things? Brother Sandberg likes to use the hashtags. I'm not a hashtag person, so all I know is that this does help draw people to this story. It has hashtag conversion, tragedy, triumph, pioneer, immigrants, stories of courage, transformation. And he also left a little note that if you're interested in Carl and you want to know more, there's a little 200-page PDF biography of him in the tree. So there's a lot more to the story than that. Okay, record hints. That's another thing you can do that doesn't take a lot of work. And on your phone, you can pull up record hints. And they show you the steps here. You go down to tasks, and then go to the 3 little dots and choose descendants with tasks, and then click hints, and they'll give you all sorts of people in your tree that have hints that need to be attached. And then you can go through and attach them just like you would do on a computer. And so there's something that's a little short activity that you could teach people to do if they want to feel like they're contributing and they only have little pieces of time here or there. Teach them how to do hints on their phone. I love this idea for families where the people are converts, but it would work for all of us as we go through and want to check our pedigree. They color in the husband and the wife in each couple with the color that represents their gender. When all the members of that family of that gender have all their temple work done. So when Donald Edward Touche is colored in there, that means that all the males in this generation were done in the temple. All their work was done. And then when his wife is colored in, that means all the women in that side were done. And then as they go, they start circling where are they going to go next. And they mark off the family so that they can progress through it. Now, this is a family that's a convert family, and they're still working. But, you know, we need to check our families out. And this would be a fun activity to do. Assign people in the family to go look at different families in the tree and make sure that everybody has all their ordinances done. And if not, do something about it. So there's a simple little activity. I thought that was kind of interesting. I'd never seen anything like that before. Okay, connections here and beyond. Both connections with you and your immediate family and your cousins and distant family, and with those on the other side of the veil. I thought one of the things that Mike did that really was a smart idea. I've had the same complaint as he had. He says, I put a lot of memories in tree and nobody's really seen them or talked about them. And so what he started doing, you know, you can share memories. And so he started sharing them as text messages and started texting them out to his kids and his nieces and nephews, his siblings. And so here was one about his father. His father's David, and David was a little 6-year-old or I think he was 8-year-old on the farm in South Dakota, and his dad let him go out and plow the field one day in the tractor. And as he was plowing in the tractor, he noticed this bird's nest out in the field there. And he kind of got up out of the seat of the tractor while it was running to get a better look. And then real quick grabbed the bar to stop the tractor from moving forward and almost fell off. And if he had, he probably would have gotten run over by the tractor and killed. Well, later on, he went home, told his mother about this, and she went straight to Dad and said, I don't think David ought to be driving the tractor anymore. He's more worried about eggs and birds' nests than he is the plowing. And so this was a little story that had been in the family and apparently had been told. And so Mike made up a memory with some pictures showing a plow with the little grates, a picture of his dad at about that age, and a picture of a bird's nest with eggs. And then he went and he sent it out as text messages all over the family. He said he couldn't believe all the responses that he got. He sent it out to like about 10 people, and practically everybody responded. They're talking about how the pictures make you want to open up the article and read it. And they loved the story. It said the hashtags are what cracked them up. And they were talking too about how mom knows best, hashtag mom knows best was always, I guess, one of their favorite sayings in the family. And how they were saying that whoever Pete is, that Dave looks like Pete from the picture that was there. But he got all kinds of conversations going within the family by sharing this memory. So there's something to think about within families, especially people that have big families. Okay, and of course, everything ultimately points to the temple. And that's where ultimately we hope to draw our people in their family history work too. But to get them going, we have to use these other tools to help them get there. And of course, that's going to be our ultimate goal. So our challenge is to try to help our members find a way to participate either daily, weekly, monthly, family special events, but try to commit them to dedicate some time no matter how little it is, because you'll be surprised over a period of time what they can accomplish. And we try to help our members to understand the blessings that come from this. And, you know, we have a little picture here. They've gone through a lot of the apostolic blessings and statements that our general authorities have used in the last, I think maybe just 5 years, and all the things that they have mentioned to us that are blessings for doing family history. You and I know these things. We need to share this with the members of our ward. The divine protections, the closeness and joy that your family can have, the joy and satisfaction that you can receive, the personal power, power to change, power to repent, power to learn, power to be sanctified, knowledge and faith in your Savior. There are so many blessings. And we need to share that with our patrons that we work with. So basically what we want to do is change the paradigm and bring your family to the promised blessings of family history and temple work, because there's so many families that don't do it. Right now, because of the pandemic, things have virtually come to a stop in our state. And I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't that way in all the states. And so we really need to do some jump starting. And even though the temple isn't ready for us yet for proxy work, there are all these things that we've talked about today that our members could be doing to get themselves ready for when it is time to start taking their own names to the temple. So that's pretty much the presentation. I hope there's been something that has jarred your mind a little bit, something that will give you some good ideas for things that you can use with the people that you work with. Any questions or thoughts?
Bob, I'd like to add something in. Do you think, who's the person you have the most knowledge about? It's yourself. So that's where you should start. You should tell your own story. I kind of, depending on my relationship with different individuals, I suggest that they go and write their own obituary, what they want people to know about them. I had a good friend that wrote his own obituary and was very outstanding. So that's the best place to start, is get the individuals to bring their life to knowledge.
That's gruesome, but that's a good idea. That's absolutely a good idea. You know, it was interesting too, because that's what, Steve Rockwood didn't talk about obituaries, but he was talking about, we know more about ourselves, and that's what we need to do, is write our story, produce our story. I thought it was so interesting. He had his sons on there. If you listen to the discovery or the closing, presentation that he did, he had his 5 grown sons up there, and they were talking about how they were recording. The one son doesn't like to write, so each day he's recording and filing in his memories for that day. Think of what down the road, 100, not 100 years from now, say 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what that's going to mean in that family. And so, it's really discovery things. These activities are really the fun stuff. And it's amazing what people can find on their family. And it starts to turn their heart. Now, I'm currently convinced that testimony doesn't come in one big piece. It comes in little pieces. And one of the little pieces that's missing in a vast majority of the members of the church is a testimony of family history. They have a testimony of going to the temple. They have a testimony of tithing. They have a testimony of all these other things. They don't have a testimony of family history. And we can get them to have that testimony by starting them out with discovery activities to start turning their heart. Because once that heart gets turned, they're going to be hooked. You know how it is. Becomes an obsession. We had one convert who was up at 2 in the morning the night before he was baptized because he was doing family history work. He didn't want to even go to bed, but he decided he better go to bed or he'd sleep through his baptism. But it became such an obsession so quickly for him. And I'll never forget that. So next time, in 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about what's new at Family Search, and maybe a little surprise or two from somewhere else. But essentially, what's new at Family Search? And there's a bunch of really neat things that have just come out or are about to come out or in the process of being rolled out right now as we talk. And so we'll be talking about some things that I'm sure you may not be aware of and try to give you some other new ideas and keep you up to date. So I've been doing all the talking. Any other comments?
I have a question.
Yeah.
It says that you recorded this. I have some consultants that haven't been able to attend. How can I see this recording again, or how can somebody do that?
Okay, what we do is after it's been recorded, they send me